The Trump administration's attempt to subvert democracy ran deeper than we knew. According to a newly released email first reported by the New York Times, the Trump administration engaged in an unprecedented level of interference in the 2020 census. The email, which was distributed amongst census officials in September of 2020, showed administration officials pressured the Bureau to end the census count early. If Trump lost to Biden in November, the administration would use the new population estimates to determine the number of seats in the House of Representatives before leaving office. Census officials balked at the administration's meddling, raising 5 instances of political interference they planned to raise with the Secretary of Commerce. In one instance, the administration attempted to blow past the 14th Amendment and have the Census Bureau exclude unauthorized immigrants from the population count, a move that would have politically benefited Republicans when congressional districts were redrawn. Joining me to discuss, Hansi Lo Wang, NPR national correspondent, covering this story. So, Mr. Wang, this is just fascinating and also disturbing on so many levels. Just walk us through how the Census Bureau, the kind of bureaucrats in the Census Bureau were able to fight back against what the administration was trying to do.
Well, there was a lot of concern from the career civil servants at the Census Bureau when the Trump administration wanted to interfere with a lot of the methodologies, procedures in preparing and carrying out what the Census Bureau tried to do, a complete and accurate once a decade count of every person living in the country. This is what's required by the Constitution. And like you said, this determines how many House seats each state gets, how many electoral college votes each state gets, as well as big implications on federal funding distribution to local communities around the country. And the Trump administration wanted to have a bigger hand, play a bigger role in determining some of these big, small decisions that really determine how ultimately how complete and accurate a census is. And these emails that the Brennan Center for Justice at New York University Law School, they obtained through a FOIA lawsuit, and they shared with the New York Times as well as with other media outlets. These emails show civil servants standing up and documenting the exact scope of the Trump administration officials, these political appointees, exactly what they were interested in. They were particularly interested in getting a state by state count of unauthorized immigrants. They were particularly interested in getting citizenship data that could have been used to possibly benefit Republicans during redistricting, and they were very interested in cutting short this the census, the counting, and really pushing the Census Bureau to take shortcuts to streamline a lot of procedures that the Census Bureau had planned for in order to have a complete count. And these are procedures revolving filling in gaps in the data, checking the count for errors, as well as protecting people's privacy. These are all procedures that the Census Bureau felt this is the domain of civil servants, of the experts, and not of political appointees. But the Trump administration officials had a lot of interest and asked a lot of questions and really put a lot of alarm in Census Bureau officials who felt that this should not be the domain of political appointees.
So this is yet another front on which, it's not really clear how far a president can go. And we've been operating under kind of conventions that this was kind of the way things behaved because that's the way they behaved all the time. That presidents would respect precedent. But when you had a president who didn't want to do that, it becomes very interesting to me how few guardrails there are and how noble some of these civil servants were in just standing up and saying, I don't know that I have the power to stand up to you, but I'm just going to do it anyway. Looking forward, is the census still vulnerable to a president who might want to do the very same things that Trump wanted to do, or if Trump is reelected?
That is an open question, Charles. There are a lot of norms that really, they're just norms that govern maybe they're too strong of a word, norms that have really set up the census procedures. And there generally is an understanding that any administration, regardless of political party, wants a complete and accurate count. Wants as good a count as possible. And here we just had an administration that did a lot of things against the advice, the expertise of Census Bureau professionals who've been doing this some for decades, and really had been planning for this for more than a decade and how to get as complete and accurate as count as possible, even during a pandemic. And ultimately, the Trump administration cut short the time for counting. It ended counting earlier than expected, despite the Census Bureau saying it needed more time because of the delays stemming from COVID-19. And this was a lawsuit that the National Urban League tried to stop the counting from being ended early, and that lawsuit went all the way to the Supreme Court. And ultimately, the Trump administration was able to end counting early. So there are a lot of questions now about, as planning is really ramping up for the 2030 census, who will be, what will the administration look like? What are their priorities? And will their perspective and how a census should be conducted, will that really line up with the norms that have really set up the census for decades?
The memo said that Trump wanted to give these kind of faulty census estimates to states as a basis for drawing political maps, which would have favored Republicans. But over this last year, we've seen a lot of GOP-led states carve out voting blocks of color, despite population growth in those states being largely because of people of color. You know, isn't this a way of that the GOP is just attacking at every way they can? They didn't need the Trump estimates to be the basis because they were able to do it through legislation on the state level.
Gerrymandering, redistricting, this is an area that has caused a lot of concern even before the Trump administration was trying to push for the citizenship data. And certainly there are a lot of ways to maneuver from both sides of the political aisle in order to try to gain some type of advantage when elections come around. And so this citizenship data the Trump administration tried to push for, that some speculate that could have helped give an edge to some Republicans when redrawing voting districts, but certainly it isn't necessarily the only way that political parties can try to get advantage.
Mr. Wong, I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. This is a fascinating story.